And we're back, episode 202, and actually putting these on YouTube as well. We had a great audience survey, got some amazing info from our incredible audience. It's an even better audience than we expected. So thank you guys, girls, for listening in. But one of the things people did say is they want more YouTube. So we're going to put as many episodes as we can, full episodes on YouTube, so you can see us. Or you can listen, of course, whatever you prefer. We're going to have every single episode. We're going to try and get close to every single episode on YouTube, especially these sort of Ask Us Anything. So we did struggle with the remote stuff. We think the quality is good enough to be on remote now. So you get to see us as well as hear us. So on that note, on to question number 1, Michael.
All right, guys. Question number 1 this week comes in from Lyndall. She asks, I'm in my late 20s working in a small team in the media industry. I've heard Adam talk a lot about how working at home ruins productivity. My whole team is in office 4 days a week, except for my boss who lives interstate. We rarely see him except over a weekly video call meeting. I feel like leadership is lacking and the whole team is not able to do their best work. Do you have any thoughts on how to manage this? It's not like I can tell my own boss to come into the office.
Lyndall, come work at Luxury Escapes from our first point. But that is a great question, and it wasn't actually written by me in drag. It's a real question. I think that boss needs to be fired, first of all. That's disgraceful. And the boss's boss needs to be fired because the boss's boss is the one who put the boss in there. So obviously we don't know the business Linda works on. It's a marketing business. The fact that the rest of the team's coming in is great. The fact that this boss is taking the piss and working interstate and not even having a daily call with their team is appalling. So this sounds like a business you probably don't want, and you don't want to work in. The fact that Lyndall's picking up on this and not happy about it proves that you're way too good for this place, Lyndall. It's just crazy, and it's the boss's fault. The boss is doing what they can take in the piss because they can. The boss's boss is letting him do that. So that's who I'd be fingering the blame on here. And I think Lyndall and the entire team should go work at a better business.
Last week we spoke about how you deal with situations as an employee in the workspace where you feel like you're either being taken advantage of or things are not progressing in the way or running in the way that you think is appropriate for your career. This is a slight variation on a theme. And the thing is, it's really what I would want to do in this situation is I would just want to turn into you, Adam, and start making snide remarks about the low quality of performance from people that work from home to hope the guy or woman in charge gets the hint. But I probably can't do that without having another job lined up that I could go to because the risk of being performance managed out of the business or made redundant is fairly high by a boss who I suspect he's insecure about this because you'd have to have a complete lack of self-awareness not to be insecure about this. The only argument that says they are oblivious to it is they only check in once a week despite working remotely, which that is the most bizarre part of this whole story, is that you've got to, I would understand if the boss said, look, I'm interstate. I don't think that this is necessarily going to work long-term, but it might. I'm interstate, I manage a team, I fly down once a fortnight to spend a few days with them in the office. I check in every day via Zoom, and just in general, for some period of time each day, I'm just on Zoom while I'm working, so that if you need to ask me anything or talk to me, I'm right here. You can just engage with me. Yeah. Maybe that would make it work. That would, to me, would be the example of someone who wants to make it work.
Why can't you be on Zoom all day? It's actually a really good point.
Because you're probably on calls and stuff sometimes as well.
Oh, obviously when you're not on calls, but if you're just having a camera sort of there.
That's right.
Working away, even if it's a bit further away from you, so it's not right in your face like this is. But that actually is a really good idea.
And interstate is not so far. People are bi-coastal in the US. Do you know what that means?
Working on LA and New York.
Yeah, they live in LA and work in New York or vice versa. And that is a lot. It's Sydney to Perth type of thing. And so that's a long journey. And so presumably this person, one of these people is not in Perth. And so if they're not in Perth, it's not very far. Get on a plane if you're the boss and get into that office every fortnight. This story is the story of someone taking advantage of a system and a business allowing them to do it. That's what it sounds like to me from the outside.
And it goes to the point I've been trying to make for a while. And people blame Gen Z and Gen Y, millennials and Gen Z, for being this sort of lazy, work from home, watch Netflix all day, don't want to come in. I found that nothing further than the truth. The people who are best at coming in generally, well, there's two groups. One are the dads who can't wait to get in, and two are the younger people under 35 who want to be in, want to get mentored, want to learn. It's the people who are the worst, are the 40 plus, earning great money, don't need to learn, and are meant to be teaching others, and they're just being incredibly selfish not coming in. Like, unless you've got a really good reason, which is carefully caring for kids or parents or being special needs, you should be in the office every day. Otherwise, especially if you're a manager, because otherwise it's the height of selfishness. And this manager is absolutely taking the piss. They're not doing the right thing by their team. They're not doing the right thing by the business. The manager's manager, both the manager and the manager's manager should be fired today. And if they work for me, they would be. And Lyndall, I think, sounds like a real go-getter and should be just getting a job at this place. You're way too good for this place with the sounds of it, and just get a better job at a platform who appreciates you and not taking the piss and not teaching their young team who clearly Lyndall's the kind of employee you want, and this manager's the kind of employee you don't want.
Well, not to advocate for the unionisation type approach of the labour force, but I wonder what the other people in the team think about this. Presumably they've got the same view on this, would be my guess. And I think any one individual on the team is vulnerable, but I think collectively they might be able to go to someone and say, listen, this is really not working. We have to change things, because you can't fire a whole team. And I think that that would produce a lot of pressure on the organisation. I agree with you though. Like, the problem is you're fighting the person above your boss ultimately, but the person above your boss might just want to keep their job, and they might placate a mob that comes and says, get rid of our boss. They don't come into work. We need someone that actually turns up. So there you go. What's the saying that the union people yell? Like, that's their chant? They've got this.
I don't go to many union rallies. You'd be shocked
I think
to know.
they chant, we shall overcome. Isn't that their big thing?
Is it? Oh,
so we can chant that about
we shall
this group
rot,
of people.
we shall rob. I don't know, it could be any number of chants they could do. We shall rob Victorian taxpayers. I think that's the CFMEU one. So, like, Lyndall, you've obviously a great performer and probably deserve better than this. And it sounds like this organisation's rotten to the core. And really, the boss's boss is the issue here. And the problem is you need two levels removed, not just one. So I think this could be almost fighting a losing battle. Better off just taking your skills elsewhere.
Agree. Go find another job.
Question number 2, Michael.
All right. Question number 2 this week comes in from Hudson. This kind of flows on to some of what we were just talking about. Hudson asks, I'm 28 years old and university educated. I know my generation is sometimes criticized for whinging, but myself and most of my friends have a genuine fear of not being financially stable. It feels like we take one step forward and 2 steps back. Do you have sympathy for people my age? And what advice would you give to people in our situation?
I think Hudson makes a great point, and 28 years old is probably the prime age of people being shafted. If you look at the massive transfer of intergenerational wealth, and we talk about this a lot on the pod, it used to be about 3 years income to buy a house, the average median house. Now it's about 10 to 12 years income to buy the average median house. So it unequivocally has become a lot harder for young people, and it becomes continually harder for young people. The only sort of point I'll make is sometimes young people are kind of bringing on themselves by voting for these left-wing parties that makes it actually worse. But that said, both left and right have been appalling to the way they treat anybody under the age of 40, essentially. And we've had this massive intergenerational theft from things like the principal capital gains exemption, generally the capital gain, negative gearing, all the ridiculous exemptions for pensioners, for older people, not pensioners, for the superannuation loophole, superannuation essentially a massive tax fraud. The fact that older people can get discounted transport, even as simple as that, when they have the most money. There's just so many unfair things in this economy that is really tilted against young people. But young people have to start getting smarter and stop voting for people like the Greens who are just going to make it worse. So I think I have a huge amount of sympathy for Hudson. I think he's totally right. There's no question that young people have had it far worse than this is the first generation where people's parents are doing better than them. And we've had this sort of, as Scott Galloway says, it's always been this pact between generations that each generation will have it better than the last. And this is reversed, and it's a real concern.
Yeah, we share the view. Like, I think this is not whining about problems. This is real problems. Like, you're 28 years old, the salary increase that you're getting, wage growth is probably being outrun in most states of Australia by property price growth. So you're actually falling further behind. I mean, it's not true in Victoria, but it's true in most other states. And
well, it's true in Victoria because wages aren't going up potentially, but
yeah, that's true. But I think property might be going down faster than wages. And you think, you do the numbers. The median house price in Victoria is $1 million. It's not far off anywhere else. It's higher in New South Wales.
I think it's 1.5 in Sydney, right?
1.5 in Sydney. Brisbane is high now.
Yeah. Perth's
So
1.3.
it's expensive.
Like it's crazy.
And so let's say you go in your 28, many people are partnering up and thinking about having kids, maybe early 30s, but yeah, getting into that age potentially. And so you want to go and get an apartment, even if, let's say the apartment costs $700,000 or $800,000. First, you have to come up with $150,000 as a deposit. And the hell are you going to have saved $150,000?
After tax.
And then after tax. And then you have to say, well, then now I've got a $600,000 mortgage. And so interest rates are 6%. Well, they could easily go to 7%, right? Like we're on an interest rate increase.
Almost certainly will. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now I got $600K, 7%, that's $42,000 interest only, not repaying any of the loan. Interest only, which the bank might not let you pay. They might force you to pay some principal, but that's $42,000 after tax. And so how can a 28-year-old do that? I mean, they can't do that, right? They're not going to own an apartment, and so they have to go and rent. Well, good luck with that, because if you look at a place, like obviously we live in Melbourne, so it's easy to talk about Melbourne. So many taxes have been added. This is a real story. So many taxes have been added to investment property in Melbourne that the number of rentals is diminishing in Melbourne. And so how are you going to find a rental property? And if you try to find one in Sydney or Brisbane, they're exorbitantly expensive, and you often see...
it's still a lot cheaper than buying, though. The rent is much cheaper than the interest.
You're right, but you have to get a rental, right? You have to get a rental. Yeah. And there is definitely... I know most countries or most big cities around the world, many people rent. We can't compare the sense of personal security not security, but personal settledness, I guess, with owning versus renting. And so I think all of those complaints by a 28-year-old, or maybe not complaints, let's call them lamentations, they're all legitimate. They're all legitimate. And I don't know that there is any solution to this in the short term. And political parties are going to make promises about all sorts of things. And some promises are going to exacerbate the problem, like fixing rent prices, for example, that the Greens propose. That exacerbates the problem. But I'm not sure there is much that can fix the problem in the short term about this. I don't know what to do about this.
What's really killed young people is every policy that's driven greater creation of money. So look at all the COVID policies, and that's far from that. The NDIS, all these policies that effectively give special interest groups money. That money has to come from somewhere, and that generally results in inflation, debt or inflation. It's the only two ways to fund these extravagant spending. So every time you build a train line in Melbourne or Sydney, every time you fund the NDIS for autistic kids who are 300,000 people on there, that is making life worse for 28-year-olds like Hudson. So that there's a direct link. It's not like it's impossible to say there's a direct link. In terms of what can you do, here's what and this is doesn't always sound great, but I think you got to really go back to basics and say, how can I get my expenses lower than my income, and what can I do there? So I think you don't buy your rent, especially if you're in expensive cities like Sydney, where it's just too expensive to buy. You probably share a house, and I mean even sharing a house with other couples, or you have like 3 or 4 to a house. That reduces your cost. You don't do things like smoke and take drugs and drink, and you even reduce your coffee, and that reduces your expenditure. Do everything you can to get your expenditure down and your income up, and that's the only way to somehow. And it's not going to be pleasant, because none of this stuff is pleasant. But ultimately, if you want to get ahead of that sort of that peg, otherwise the bar keeps raising, but get your expenses down and stop spending lots of money, and that's the only way to get ahead, because otherwise it's just impossible.
And it doesn't stop with property prices. I mean, the price of everything is exorbitant and driven by the inflation caused by the issues you've just highlighted. The other bigger problem for a 28-year-old is that when there were zero interest rates that drove asset bubbles, this person, Hudson, was 23 or 24. He's not participating in those asset bubbles at that point in time, so he doesn't get the upside of it. I think this is very bad for society. If I'm 28 and I've got a good job and I'm looking at my prospect of buying a house, and then I see stories of houses trading for 8 mil, 10 mil, 20 mil, I feel like I feel probably angry. That's, I think, the emotion I would feel, and cheated. And that leads to bad places. And I know we say it over and over and over again. And I say to Hudson, just please don't get the pitchfork out. Like, let people have a chance to solve the problem, because I think we're creating a society where a very large group of young people are getting very, very angry. And that is a dangerous place to drive a society.
I think we totally agree that the policies for younger people have been completely just disgraceful and catastrophic. But I think there's also, I don't think we should take that, as bad as it is, and not do anything about it. And I mentioned stuff you can do with sharing houses and working 1 or 2 jobs and jumping on and start doing food delivery. If you're a really good food delivery person, you can make 50, 60, 70 bucks an hour if you're really smart about it. So there's ways to increase your income. And other stuff's pleasant. I said, don't go out and spend a lot of money. And even stuff like don't go out to restaurants, make your own food, and even make your own bread, make your own part. There's actually ways to eat for far cheaper if you're buying natural ingredients and not buying processed stuff, and not getting Uber Eats, actually delivering Uber Eats rather than buying Uber Eats. So there's ways to significantly bring down your cost base. So it goes to 2 things. So do everything you can to increase your income, reduce your cost base. Every cent you save, and it's hard because the market's really high now, but at some point you can potentially lever into ETFs when the market's low enough, and that's like levering into property. So you can lever into an ETF for much less money than levering into property, not investment advice. There are ways to get ahead, but it's hard. It's really hard. And if you're at 28, you've been dealt a really bad hand. Nobody's denying that. That doesn't mean you can't do anything. My father-in-law grew up in London in post-war, and they shared a house with 4 other families, and they had 1 bathroom outside the house, and it was a tough existence, and they did an incredible job. And so I think, I'm not saying that young people haven't been shafted, because they clearly have relative to older generations, but relative to how other generations lived before us, we've still got it pretty good. So I think we can also look at it in multiple different ways. So yeah, there's been a huge intergenerational theft. That's not to say we have it not a lot better than we had 3 or 4 generations ago. I think the issue is the last generation had it better. And the last generation, I'm not saying no one's blaming older people for doing it intentionally, but the way it's transpired with the way governments have operated there's been this huge transfer of wealth from younger people to older people, and this huge makeup and accumulation of debt that young people are going to have to repay. So great question, Hudson, super topical.
Let me just throw this last thing in at the end. So you know who has houses that's 28? Heirs. That's who has houses. People whose parents or grandparents or whatever buy them a house, or at least pay the deposit on that. And it doesn't have to be billionaires, right? It just has to be someone with a few $1 million that pays a deposit for their kid, or guarantees a loan, or something along those lines. And so what we see, such rises the new aristocracy. That is the problem that's going on in society.
Last question, over to you, Mike.
Question number 3 this week comes in from Freya. This is a slightly different one, but I thought it was really interesting. I recently lost my father, which, while not unexpected, has really shaken me. It's a life change I've never really experienced before, and it's made me really contemplate how I want to spend the next part of my life, as I feel I've over-prioritized work over connection. My question is, have you experienced a loss like this, and how did it change your approach to life and work?
Well, thankfully, I have not. Both of my parents are very much alive, as I experience almost every day of my life, in a good way. And, I think when you lose grandparents, I was very close with my grandmother, but it's not the same as losing a parent, right? So I can't speak from experience. I don't have the identical experience, thank goodness. But I want to just say my broader view about all of this. I kind of think about this issue every day. Like every day I think about how inconsequential and brief our time on earth is. And I know I sometimes say that to people and they think it's very depressing. I don't find it depressing at all. I find it very liberating, because it means that like all the things that you think are important, like they're very unimportant. I would advise people strongly, if you haven't done this before, just go walk through an old cemetery and look at all of the graves. It sounds morbid. I don't do it infrequently, but it's pretty good, because you look at all these people and you think to yourself, every one of those people thought all these things were important in the way that I do now. And not only is none of it important and they all look the same. And like I go to the cemetery where John Monash is buried, he looks the same, okay? His gravestone is nothing special. And not only is it all unimportant, but really no one is visiting any of these gravestones because everyone who cared about these people, they're all dead as well. Like, these people are gone, and it's not bad that they're forgotten. It's good. Like, that is the cycle of life. And so then the question is, how can you enjoy yourself while you're here? And if you care about this type of thing, which I do, how can you maybe make things better for the people that will be here for a bit of time after you're here? But it's not going to last long, because everyone will forget about that as well in 200 years, 100 maybe. And I think that the broader way that I think about life is just very, like, I think about this a lot. It sounds crazy, but like, number one, thank God my parents are not dead. But like, I do think about this very deeply. I don't know if I'd say every day, but definitely every week I think about this, maybe most days, that we're this tiny speck somewhere in a universe that we don't possibly understand. And it is very unclear if there's a reason or not why we're here. And if you believe in religion, you've got some reasons to that. And if you don't, you might not. And so all you can think about is, I'm not here for long. I might not be here tomorrow. Like, that is the truth. Like, you might not be here tomorrow. So how can today I live in a way that makes me feel happy and makes the people around me feel happy? And I feel like that is the main thing that matters in life, and everything else that we worry about. And by the way, I do not perfectly live this at all. I've got lots of problems. So there's a whole stack of them. So, but this is how I try to think about living life. It really just comes down to being happy and trying to make the people around you happy as well. And maybe trying not to make people too unhappy that are beyond that. So I don't know if that helps, but that is how I think about the world all the time.
Hard to top that answer. And sorry for your loss, Freya. Like Adir, I haven't lost any parent yet. I never really knew my grandparents. Two passed away. One passed away before I was born, one I was very young, and two lived in different countries. So I never really knew them. So I haven't, other than losing my best friend when I was in the early 20s, haven't experienced the loss of a family member. So it's hard for me to comment too much, but I strongly second what Adir said. I think the way you're looking at it, to reflecting on your life, I think that's what your father would have wanted. So I think it's a great question. I think Adir answered it really well. Nothing more for me to add.
Well, I'll just add something to my own answer, which is, because I don't want to imply that I think that I live each day as if it's your last, because I think that is a bad way to live life. That's not good quality decision making. And so I often say to my kids, if they're getting upset about a decision that I'm making, for example, maybe I tell my daughter, I don't know, she's got to do something and my son has to go to bed at a reasonable hour and like they don't like it. And I say to you that my job is to try to help you find happiness in life, but I'm about long-term happiness, not short-term happiness. So short-term, I appreciate I might be making you sadder, but I'm doing this because I think it's going to be good for you over the long term. And so I think it's smart to make decisions. There's some balance. It's smart to make decisions that will make you happier over the long term and do some self-sacrifice in the short term. But the flip side is, the stories of people that put off all of the great stuff they were going to do until their retirement, and then they die like 3 days after they retire. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's a terrible story as well, right? So, I think there's a balance. And I think some people are cynical and they say, why does it take something terrible like a, sad death of Freya's dad to contemplate life? I'm not cynical about that. I feel the opposite. I feel like, what a positive that can come out of such a negative thing, that you reconsider how your life is, and that the time after he passes away leads to a happier life than the time before as a result of contemplation because of that event. So, I'm all in favour of that type of thing.
Thank you, Freya. Thank you, Adir. Thank you, Mike. That was another 3 amazing questions from the world's smartest podcast listeners. It doesn't surprise me. We'll be back with our big episode on Tuesday, of course. And don't forget, you can catch our episodes on YouTube as well. So if you want to see us see Adir's biceps in person, make sure you jump on and don't miss them.
They're kind of cut off in the webcam in this view, though.
Thank goodness that I'm not totally humiliated.
You need to make a wider webcam.
It's public. I'm going to zoom
doesn't
it in.
Full stereo.
In my eye. I'm just going to be one eye on this video from now on.
We'll get our engineers to work and resolve this bicep issue for everyone in the next week, especially our female listeners. On that note, thanks again. We'll see you on Tuesday.